How you doing, folks? In a previous video, I asked for your help and advice as to how to resolve the body alignment issues with this 1974 1303 Beetle here behind me. So many of you came back with very, very helpful suggestions, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So thank you so much. But now it's time to actually try and get the job done. So we're gonna get stuck in and see how we fare out. So just to summarise what the issue is, the passenger door gap is completely wrong down at the bottom, and no amount of adjusting in the hinges is going to resolve that. The door aperture is just wrong. So I was kind of thinking, you know, was something twisted, was something stretched or re-welded in the wrong position or something like that. But according to a lot of people, no, it's literally just a case of how the body has been bolted down onto the floor pans and the chassis. So that needs to be resolved. Now, one of the things that is the case is the rear body mounts inside the inner wheel arches on the back are they're bolted directly together, and there's supposed to be a bushing in there. So that'll be one of the things we'll be addressing. But I'm gonna peruse the suggestions that have been made, and we're gonna go through this methodically and see if we can get this right, because this is one of the big things that's really bothering me about this car. And if I can get this right, I think it'll really spur me on to get a lot more done with it and kind of get this project back on track. Okay, so this operation needs to be done with the car's wheels on the ground. So some of you who know how to do this might be saying, what's he going at it with the jack for? Well, the reason being is that I need to get it up so that I can just get that one bolt behind the in the inner wing removed. Now, it should be pretty straightforward in that regard, but once I have that bolt out, I'll then go about dropping it back onto its wheels, and then we can get the rest of them out then. But the other thing I'll be doing as well while I'm under here is I will be having a look to see where the bolts actually are, because this car is lowered, so there's not a great deal of clearance underneath it. You'll notice I'm being a bit more careful with the jack these days now that I actually, since I stuffed it through the radiator on the front of the MG not that long ago. Because to say I was a little miffed about that would be an understatement. So now, right, so that body mount bolt needs to come out, so I'm going to start with that, and we'll go from there. Oh, that would have really ruined my day now. Now, the jack handle going straight through the back glass. Why did I need to stitch these type of things? Jeez, that is bet in there. This one's going to come out all the way, but the other ones I'm just going to be loosening. I'm not going to be actually taking them out as such. I'd laugh if the gap actually came good just by loosening this, but I think that's wishful thinking if ever there was. Now, okay, so that's that done. So now, let's see what else we need to loosen. So there'll be bolts all along the floor pan, right the way up over the tunnel and everything in the centre. So I'm going to go in as far as the tunnel, but I want to see what other bolts actually go around the kind of the rear cross member, such as it is. So I don't think there really is much. And she's leaking a bit of oil anyway. Show me a Volkswagen Beetle that doesn't, and I'll show you a Volkswagen Beetle with no oil in it. It's the old line: if there's no oil under it, there's no oil in it. Or the Volkswagen continuous oil change system. Right. So now, yeah, it should be just a case of getting these floor pan bolts right the way down along, and loosening them all off, and then getting the ones at the front cross member off as well. But I can't really do that until I have the car off the jack, because the possibility of twisting something is quite high. Okay, so time to get under and do our thing. I may get the half-inch drive socket set out on this one, but we'll see how we go. 14s or 13s? They're 13s. The one at the back was a 14. Why do I do this to myself? I have an electric ratchet. God, I love this tool. Ah, me bloody head. Oh, that was the jacking point. Oh, God. Okay. So that's all of the body mount bolts down the side of the floor pan done, and the one there in the inner arch. But there are two coming down from, there's a kind of a retainer plate and two studs with nuts on them that come down. So I need to loosen them as well. And then I'm going to tackle the ones over the tunnel in the back. And then we're going to have a look and see how we are looking for movement. So, yeah. Look, let's just hope. We'll just proceed with caution. I don't anticipate I'm going to get this all done today, but I'm also hoping that I do, and I'm hoping that when I actually loosen all the bolts, it all just kind of goes boing and gets into shape, and I can button them up. I doubt it. I really doubt it, but who knows? Oh, and by the way, I'm freezing my mebs off here. I need to think of something as far as heat is concerned for this garage when I'm working out in it, because it's Baltic. I have this Krypton torch here rather than an LED, because LEDs are great and all for battery life and longevity and everything like that. But to be honest with you, when it comes to actually trying to see things and to see detail, you can't beat a Krypton torch. The visibility is just far better on them. I don't know what it is. I think it's just something to do with the frequency of the light. But in any case, I can see a lot better with this than I can with my LED torch. That said, the LED torch is brighter, but it's a trade-off. All right. So now, so far as I understand, that's all of the body mount bolts on the underside of the car actually undone, loosened anyway. So I'm going to go inside and I'm going to just do the few with the tunnel under the rear seat and get them loosened off, and then we're going to have a look and see what we need to do next. Right at the very front of the car, at the on the frame head, just behind where the U-bracket is that holds the anti-roll bar in place, there's another bolt there, and that also needs to be loosened as well. So I'm going to get that one out then. And then we'll just have a look around the back, because I think there may well be another one or two hidden there that I'm not sure about. I can't remember, to tell you the truth, and kind of flying blind. God knows where my maintenance manual is for this car. So yeah, look, I'll take that off and then we'll see how we go. Okay, so to the best of my understanding, I have all of the bolts loosened that need to be loosened anyway. So I'm going to try and start making the adjustments now. But I just want to draw your attention to one thing. There is absolutely no good reason to do this. There's supposed to be a flange on the end of that. So in the event of a crash, that door would most likely have popped open. That's crazy. So I'm going to have to replace that bloody thing now, you know, just because somebody got overzealous with a grinder. For God's sake, like. So anyway, look, I have to take it off as part of the process anyway. Okay, so my understanding at this point in time is that what I'm supposed to be able to do now is to tighten the front bolts, which will push the front of the car down and lift the frame up essentially. Or I am supposed to tighten the back, and the back will kind of move down, and sort of the car will essentially go a little bit like this. But I can't get any wiggle room on the back. The body mount, the inner arch bracket is hard up against the mount for the shock absorber. So I have to. I'm thinking the only way around this is to get the jack in underneath the car somewhere on the body, and just try and very gently lift the body a little bit to get a bit of clearance in there. And then I have the new rubber bushings to go into the space. Now I may use them, or I may decide to use stainless washers. A few people have suggested to use stainless washers instead of those, but I'll see how I go. For the meantime anyway though, I need to get a bit of clearance in that, and I'm hoping that when I lift that, I start to see a gap opening up on the door frame here, and if I do, then I know I'm going on the right track. But I'll be going very, very carefully, okay? I'm not going to be going just cranking the handle up. So first thing I need to do is I need to find a suitable place on the body to actually jack it. I'm going with the bumper mount brackets. So, alright, so now at this moment in time, I've got bugger all clearance. So I'm going to just give that a little bit of a jack and see what happens. Let's see how... hasn't really helped us at all. But mind you, it hasn't gotten us any clearance there either. So I think I need to find somewhere else to jack it. Either that or give it a little bit more of a squeeze. You know, that's not working. I need, let's see, I suppose, get in, no. Right, what if I got a wooden block in there or something like that? The problem is, it's quite hard to try and find an area where you can actually jack against the body, because most of the, you know, the floor pan is, as you can imagine, is on the bottom. So, yeah, I'm thinking there in the front part of the, let's see now, just above the torsion bar. Probably a big awkward jack for the purposes of this exercise, but it's what I have to hand, so a bottle jack might actually even be handier, to tell you the truth. Right, a block of wood. I need a block of wood. Alright, so it's another day in the garage and I am absolutely freezing my mebs off out here. I really have to do something about some heating. But for the meantime anyway, I've got the trolley jack positioned underneath the back bumper with some cushioning in place there, and what I've done is I've loosened off the bolts underneath the back seat as much as possible without them actually coming out, and I'm actually going to take off a couple of the ones underneath as well there, well, loosen them a bit more, so that should give us a bit more room to kind of lift the car. So what I need to do is I need to get 10 mil of clearance between the shock mount tower on the back axle and the body, and yeah, so if I can try and lift it up a little bit to get that clearance, at least that way then we have a kind of a starting point to kind of go from. I also found 2 other bolts underneath the spare wheel in the front, which also needed to be loosened off. This justifiably makes me nervous, to be honest with you, doing this. I don't enjoy this process, and to be honest with you, it's one of those things I would actually happily pay somebody to do for me to get this right. But in the absence of anybody who I could actually trust to do it properly, I may do it myself. Alright, so let's see how. So we're lifting it by the bumper hanger now, okay, so let's see if we're getting any clearance there. No, we're not. See, I can't figure that out. Like, short of lifting the car off its bloody wheel, I mean, like, it's not opening up there. I'm just going to get a pry bar in between the bodywork and the shock tower. Look, I'll give it a belt of under seal afterwards. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, where, like, unless I need to take off take out the bolts across the middle of the car all the way across and the back, I might just try and slacken them off a little bit and see if we start getting a bit Because that's the only thing I'm thinking that could actually be holding it at this stage, is those 2 bolts. But your guess is as good as mine at this point, folks. Right, I'm going to just back these off a bit. I feel like there's something else I'm missing here, like some other mounting point. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my trolley jack out and jack up the car and take off the wheel and have another look around there and see. I think that's probably the best course of action at this point in time. I don't like having to jack up the car with all the body mount bolts I'm doing like this, because I feel like I'm introducing a lot of stresses. But there again, I suppose I'm lifting it from the chassis rather than the body at this point. So. Right. Okay, so looking in at the inner arch here, right? There's where I'm trying to get the clearance, okay, between that point there and that point there. So what I want to do is I need to try and kind of lift the bodywork away from here to open that gap up. But like, I don't see anything else that actually could be holding it. Like, and my understanding is there isn't actually anything that's holding it. So realistically, what I need to do now is I need to try and get some sort of method of dropping the body away from the or dropping the chassis away from the body a little bit. So given the fact that I've the bolts all loosened off, that should happen and in theory. So how am I going to go about doing that though? I suppose what I could do is I could maybe get something propped under the bumper, or just afraid of creasing some bodywork here, you know. That's the problem. Like, you know, I don't want to do damage. Now that's a fairly sturdy piece of metal there, but like the same with the bumper hanger on the back. But like, I don't know, I'm gonna have to have a think about this. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do is I have this axle stand here, and this one here is actually supporting the rear axle. Now, I don't want that one there at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up the car enough to be able to take that out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to drop the car so that this comes down onto this. Now, I'm going to get something just to cushion that. Yeah, that means that, like, that's a doubler plate there. That's a strong bit of metal there, right? And I'm going to gingerly just let the jack down. I'm not going to let it down all the way, but I'm going to let it down and then see if we start getting a bit of clearance here. And if we do, then we're laughing. And if we don't, I'm stumped. Right, so let's see what happens here now. Yeah, we're getting clearance. Okay, we have clearance. Clarence. Roger. What's our vector, Victor? Those of you who haven't seen Airplane think I've completely lost the plot. Those of you who have probably still think that anyway, but I don't care. Right, now let's see how our door gap is looking, just out of interest. Different. Different is good in this context. Okay, so right, so now I think we're maybe going the right direction. Okay, so it's a few days later. I'm dying of a head cold, and I'm back out in the freezing cold garage, trying to have another go at this. But anyway, such as it is, let's see how things are coming along. So you'll see here there's a new bolt in there because the old bolt left its threads behind in the hole. To be honest with you, it looks like whoever put it in just sent the Ugga Duggas and didn't pay any regard for what sort of threads were in there. So I actually had to tap that out. I've got a stack of washers in there now anyway, which make up 10 mil of clearance, which is supposedly what we're looking for there. So that should give the ideal clearance on that area. But I still have a little bit of wiggle room there, so that's why I've left that bolt loose. All the other bolts are loose as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the wheel back on the back of the car here and level everything out. And then we're going to just start lifting different parts of the car with the jack just to see what gets us close to the mark on the door clearance. Because certainly doing that has made some difference. I wouldn't necessarily say a good difference, but a difference is a difference. So it means we're definitely barking up the right tree. So let's get that wheel back on first. Okay, so I'm trying to think about this logically. To be honest with you, it's testing my spatial awareness. So I'm trying to figure out where I need to lift it in order to get that gap, basically the back of the door to move that direction, and the bottom to move a little bit that direction as well. So basically, what I'm thinking is there's no flex in the floor pans that if I were to actually stick the jack right under there in the middle, I'll just give it a little bit of pressure and just see. But maybe I might just go a little bit forward of the B pillar and see if maybe that little bit of pressure. Actually, I'm thinking maybe even the A pillar might be actually the right way to go. But there's a little bit of flex anyway in there, so by lifting that, that might get us a bit closer to the mark. So we'll just try it. Now I'm going to go gingerly. I'm not going to go just lob the jack underneath and just hope for the best. I mean, that's never served me well before, so why would it this time? Okay, so let's have a look and see now. Here's my can of WD-40. Right, okay, now. So, if I go right under the... see, I can actually... There's enough room to get in underneath the actual heater channel there. So what I can maybe do is just try and lift it up there. Oh, look at that. The grease nipple got broken off my trolley jack for some reason. Oh well. Yeah. Alright, so let's see then. As I said, I'm just going to go very gently here. No, definitely not there because it's actually on the wheel arch. Right, so let's have a go with this now. Right, so there's a bit of force being taken there, so we'll see how the door's looking now. I actually think that has made a positive influence. Give it a little bit more. Okay, so I've given it just a little bit more pressure there, and it is actually starting to come good. So now, what we have is we've got too little a gap right the way down the door, but the door is now not kind of kicked, if you know what I mean. So where does that leave us? So yeah, so by lifting up there, which is just forward of it, we're lifting up the nose of the car slightly, or see, I'm trying to figure out how it's affecting the geometry of the body. This is taxing. Yeah, I'll put the thinking cap on. I'm going to just try maybe, what I might do is I might actually bring the trolley jack down forward on the car and see how that goes. So let's just see, for example, if I let that off now, how much is the... Yeah, okay, so the door drops quite significantly, probably by about... couldn't be that unlucky. It probably dropped by about quarter inch there even. You know what? Let's measure it. I mean, there's only so much you can go before you're actually just lifting the whole car, you know, so... right, so, like... The gap around there is fairly uniform there now, so I'd be fairly comfortable with that. But the problem, as I said, is it's down this line here. So what do we do? What do we do? Let's see. See, I like. I'm not gonna do anything at the front end of the door because then I lose the clearance at that end. And that creates a whole other problem. So let's have a go. I'll see. I'll get some measuring device and a ruler. So what we've got now between the top of the, like, going straight up from the door to the gutter is 7 mil. Okay, so now if we drop that off, what are we left with? $15. That's what we're talking about here, you know. I mean, it's not small measurements. They're the bloody thing. It's miles out. Like everything's miles out. So yeah, let's just try and lift the front of the car and we'll see how we go from there. A thought occurs to me while I'm looking under the front of this car. Actually, because this is a 1303, it's got a coil spring on the front. So they're McPherson struts on the front. Okay. And the McPherson strut is going from the ground to the body, which is essentially lifting the body on the front end. So, do you see what I'm getting at here? If the body has been lifted up all the time by that spring, then what if I compress the spring and see if just take that out of the equation and see if it makes a difference. It might actually, you know, I mean, because maybe it's a peculiarity of 1303s that's what you have to do or something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's a thought, because a standard Beetle doesn't have that issue. The standard Beetle has torsion bars, and they're completely supported by the chassis, not the body. So even if you take the body off a standard Beetle, I'm explaining this for people who don't know Beetles, by the way. If you take the body off a standard Beetle, it still remains a rolling floor pan. Whereas if you take the body off a 1303, the front suspension collapses. So because it's supported in the inner wings on the actual body. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Could be complete bullshit, but worth a try. Instead of compressing the spring, jack up the car on the floor pan. That takes the weight off the wheel. It means that the spring's not pushing up on it. At least not to the same level anyway. We'll see if it makes a difference, and if it does make a difference, then we know we're on the right track. The MG is in the way. I'm not putting it outside at the moment. Okay. I was able to move the MG back a bit. Alright, so let's see then. Is this going to make a difference? I'm just actually going to lift the wheel up off the ground altogether. Alright. That's actually made it worse. So like the door won't close now. So yeah, that is not going to work. Or maybe it's because of the fact that I'm kind of twisting it up that way. So okay, so right, let's think about this now. So if I'm lifting the floor pan up, and the chassis up, it's going to be pulling up that end of the car along with it, and it's going to be pushing the door down in the process. So by me jacking up that end, it's kind of lifting up that side, it's pulling the door in the right direction. But I still don't know how to move the entire operation further down, you know, so that they actually have the room. I might just try and put a little bit of pressure on the body on that end rather than the floor pan, and see if that would, like, not the floor pan, the chassis, and see how that goes. And so we'll drop the car down again, because that's not doing it for us. Okay, I've got hold of the body in the front there anyway. So let's see now how we're looking. Take a little bit of force there. It's hard to know. It's also hard to know what the hell I painted that absolute dickhead for when I... It's also hard to know what the hell I paid that dickhead for when I got him to paint my car. The gutters are all bubbling and everything there now. Unbelievable. I'll have to get the body work done again in another 3 years, I expect. Oh, that's not coming good there. Okay, so we were in the right ballpark when we lifted it where we did earlier on, so maybe that's the way to go. Actually see it pulling out there at the hinge. So as if the whole, I suppose you'd call it the firewall. If there was an engine in the front, it would be anyway. It's kind of pulling out that direction, so because the nose of the car is dropping down, it's pulling all of everything out that way. And kind of coming right here. Look, whatever else happens, it's certainly better. Now, I'm wondering if I tighten up the bolts underneath the front of the car. At this point, will that actually hold it in position then when I actually drop it down? So I suppose it could be worth a go. See now. Yeah, there's the 2 bolts in there now. If I actually tighten them, what's going to be the outcome of that? Probably worth a go. Let's do that. Okay. Right, so let's just see how we're looking now before I do anything else. Alright, so gap is definitely a lot better. There's no doubt about that. It's definitely better. I could probably... How could I do that? Let's just see. I know it's been said to me already about making sure that the hinges are well lubricated and everything, that they're not actually pulling out, and they're not. That's not what the issue is here. But just for pig iron, we'll throw a bit of WD on them anyway, because I have the cam beside me, and if that's all it was, I'll eat my Mickey. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not that. So it's kicked out at the bottom when the top is in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to loosen the bottom hinge. And I'm going to let the door go in at the bottom there a little bit. And we'll see how that looks. Okay, so I've loosened the bottom hinge and the door drops down. So by rights now, it should push in. I think if you actually let the door hang down, I think it's just pulling out because of the seal, so I'll let the door hang down and I'll tighten them up, and we'll see how we're looking then. I'm probably getting hung up on stuff I don't need to get hung up on at this point in time, but look, hopefully we'll get there in the end. I think we're making good progress now anyway, or some progress anyway. So, okay, now with it being supported on the jack, it's definitely looking an awful lot better now. I have the 2 front bolts underneath the bonnet. They're buttoned up. I'm going to start buttoning up the bolts along there. I'm going to do the one on the wheel arch, I'm going to do the ones on the back seat, and I'm going to do the 2 nuts down underneath there as well. And we're going to get everything tightened up. And then after everything's tightened up, then I'll let off the jack, and hopefully it won't all just go boing and go all to shit again. So, look, we'll just have to see. And I mean, whatever about anything else, at this point in time, the door is a lot better than it was. Now it's still not perfect, but it's a damn sight closer than it was. That's for sure. So, I wonder how much of that has caused, how much of the closing issue has been caused with the seal catching there. Yeah, the seal is not really squeezing in around the door down there, so feels to me like the seal is actually just not pushed in around there. So that might be another thing to do. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll just get a podger or poking device or something like that and just get those. Actually, even just my thumbs is doing the job. Bit of lubricant might do the job. KY jelly gets my 2 thumbs up every time. I don't charge for the human. Okay, so it's the moment of truth. Let's see how it's looking. So we'll drop it off the jack and hopefully it's not go pear-shaped. For fuck's sake. I mean, yes, it's better, but it's still... What if I literally just try lifting the door? Get a block of wood underneath the jack and just lift it gently. See if it'll go that way. To be honest with you, I'm willing to give it a go because you know when you've had something done for you, the work has been so bad that it's just left a bad taste in your mouth and you don't want anything more to do with it anymore. That's what that's kind of where I am with this. The problem is I don't really have anybody who I can actually trust to do it right for me, like, who I can actually give it into and say to them, look, fix this for me and let me know when it's done. I just don't really have the money for it either, to be honest with you. Alright, let's just see if that's made an impact. If it has, leave him well enough alone. Actually has. Let's just put the striker plate back on there now and see how the door actually closes. All right, so let's see how it's looking now. Better, but not perfect. All right, so the only other thing I'm thinking is, like, if I lift the door here, right? Closes all right. If I don't lift the door, it makes a liar out of me. Well, it's because the other door is open. If you close the driver's door, which closes perfectly, because dickhead Steve didn't have a go at that side. It's just going to annoy me is what it is, it's just really just going to annoy me. Like, what if I literally take the door hinge off the top and just shave a couple of thou off the back of it with a grinder and just make that door hinge thinner so that it lifts the door up and pulls it back? Shouldn't have to do it. Would it work? Probably yes, but it's still a bodge. I mean, even if maybe I was actually able to just take the paint off that side of it and have a look at it. Take the door off first of all and then just have a go at it. You know what? Let's just do it. Let's do that. Okay? We get the door off. It's not exactly rocket science taking the door off a Beetle. Right. I suppose taking the pin out of the check strap would be a good idea as well. There we go. I know there's wires connected to it, but I'm just going to literally take it. lift it down, put it on the block of wood on the ground and lean it against the car. So I'm not going to be taking it far. Alright, so the hinges are certainly not seized up anyway, that's that much I can tell you. So yeah, so I tried just tapping on that part there just to kind of try and push it in a bit and knock the lump of filler out. So yeah, that's great. No, that's really, really nice now, I have to say. I'm really happy with that. It's yeah, thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. So yeah, such as the game we play. Anyway, right, we continue on. What are we gonna do? Yeah, we're gonna give these hinges a tickle and see if we can maybe. It's not gonna make a damn bit of difference. It really isn't. I can tell you that now for nothing. In reality, the more I do on this car, the more I realise I need professional help. Me or the car, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but yeah, I need somebody who can actually do this and get this right for me, because all of that the paint needs to be taken off that corner. Like, that was an entire front inner wing section there, right? And it should have been, like, if he wasn't going to fold the crease line along there, which I can understand, to be honest with you, then he should have cut it back about an inch and done a seam weld down there and kept the existing seam on the car as it was, because there was nothing wrong with it. Instead, he tried to replicate the seam on the car with filler and bodgery. Not to mention the fact that the car, literally the paint walks off it. I mean, literally, you could scratch it with your fingernail, I'd say. Maybe not that bad, but like, still, it's terrible. But yeah, I'm gonna just give them a little tickle with a. Actually, I'm just gonna give them a rub, a bit of emery, and just put them back on. To be honest with you, and if I can get the door to close, I'm just gonna leave it be until I can get something else done with it. Because I don't know. I mean, yeah. The more time I spend on this, the more it annoys me. At least if I can get onto other things in the car, I might be able to actually kind of make progress and get it driving all right, at least. Because at least if it drove all right, which it doesn't at the moment, if it did, I'd be a lot happier. The reason it doesn't drive well is just because of the fact that the engine is mile out of tune. Number 3 idle jet is blocked in the carbs. The brakes are a bit peculiar. That electric vacuum pump doesn't do the job really that well. So I need to take a vacuum takeoff from the engine, and there's also an exhaust leak on the engine. So a lot of fluting around to do on that, like, you know. But yeah. So anyway, I'm just gonna give them a rub of emery, put them back on the car, and just forget about that. There's a good thickness of paint on that anyway. That may well actually make all the difference, funnily enough. Let's hope for the best here, folks. Alright, look, it's not going to be the ideal solution, is it? I mean, but like, it's worth a punt. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to smear a bit of grease on them. That'll stop them from rusting. And then we'll pop the door back on and see how we go from there. Okay, so I was never looking for perfection in this job, to tell you the truth. I mean, you kind of knew that anyway, like, but it'll have to do. It's all right. You know what? It made all the difference. And I think a combination of things here both undoing the body bolts, jacking things up, kind of jacking the door up, cleaning off the hinges, all of that sort of stuff. It kind of got us a lot closer to the mark than we were before. Now, the only thing I do need to do is I need to get that new striker plate now. But to be honest with you, the door closes. The door gaps are shite, like, I mean, they really are. But I'm not going to get that right. I don't have the resources. I don't have the inclination to do it, to tell you the truth, either. But what I do have is the inclination to get all the other stuff done and leave this alone, because it's as much as I can do. Now, what I will do is I'll try and get some touch-up paint and just go around a few little marks and stuff like that on it and try and just take the rough look off some of the stuff. Much as I don't have to do that, yeah, I mean, look, it's let's see how it closes with the window up, because the air pressure equalization does make all the difference. Good enough. Yeah. All right, let's leave it there. There's plenty to be done on this car, and in the coming weeks I'm going to be kind of getting stuck into the garage a bit more again. I'm not going to touch the MG at the moment, simply because of the fact that it's actually good enough to go for the springtime. There are jobs I do want to do. I want to get the back end out of it and do kind of paint it up and change all the bushings, and I want to reupholster the driver's seat. So there are two jobs that need to be done in that car. But this car, there's fresh air ducting. I want to try and get the engine sorted out and the exhaust. I want to get the kind of the interior looking nice. There's a few nice little kind of modifications I want to do on it here and there. So yeah, I mean, look, I do have a checklist on my phone of jobs to do, which I add to when I think of them, and this is one of them. And to be honest with you, this job is going to be getting ticked off. So let's leave it there, folks. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another installment on this car and my other projects on the way too. So yeah, chat to you soon. Thanks for watching.